Good day. We're here with Tony Sanderson, Director of BNR Radio, Business Network Radio, an online streaming radio station broadcasting from Cape Town, South Africa. How did Business Network Radio start? What's the conception behind the entire station?
Well, there are two answers to that one. One, because over the many years, despite being part of the team that wrote the Broadcast Act for the government, we were never granted a radio license of our own. So one had to circumvent ICASA, or as it was the IBA in those days. So streaming radio was a concept that I picked up while I was in London over there. And it's so successful. There was a station called Gold, and it's got 1.2 million listeners to it. And I thought, well, okay, if they won't give us a license, let's go on. But then I realized that to compete with commercial music stations was never going to be the thing to do here. So we went for business, and that's BN, Business Network Radio. And we play music that doesn't offend the businessman when he's working, with very quick flashes of business news in there, a couple of interviews and that, but very quickly in and out. And no presenters constantly yakking away, which is the most irritating thing on radio. I'm not interested in their lives at all, and most people aren't. So the businessman, he just wants to get on with his job, and it doesn't invade. Nobody wants to work in a dead office, me least of all. I like something in the background. Some people like classical music, some people like pop music. But I think to liven up is a medium that pleases your staff and it pleases yourself as well at the same time. I work better if I've got something in the background. It's soothing. And there's a lot of irritation in today's world. It's a high-profile world. It's a I want it now world, and this kind of relaxes you into it. And if you do want a bit of information, it's there.
Streaming radio. Do you think that's the next big thing in the world?
Well, it has to be. I mean, it's far-reaching. There's no limitation to it. It can go all over the world. And it's non-invasive in some respects, because it's a choice that you can make. Either you can listen to that, whereas with a radio, a lot of people now say they've got CDs in their car, have to listen to a specific station, have to listen to that boring disc jockey or presenter or whatever you want to call him. Whereas in this instance, it doesn't apply. Yeah, I think it's definitely the future. I don't think we've even scratched the surface, because streaming television is obviously the next thing. Everything is electronic media today. Why should radio not progress and TV progress down the same road?
Tony, does BNR Radio carry advertising?
Yes, it can, but not to a point where it's flooding. And that's another irritation. In today's modern world, I mean, most of the people who have got machines that can skip through the adverts on television, and it's the same with listening to adverts sometimes in your car radio. I think it's been abused. If there's a certain amount of time allowed for advertising in a program, that's fair enough. But what has become the habit now is to make as much money as possible and crowd it out and put as least music. In the old days, you used to speed a record up so you could get another advert in. You used to take it up just a notch past, when you had 45s
and
33s, you used to take it up just that little bit, and it gave you more room for one more advert.
Do you think there's definite benefits for an advertiser to advertise on BNR?
Yes, because it's cost effective. I mean, you're talking about 100 adverts costing you 5,000 Rand at the moment, which is for nothing on a radio station, but it's payable to us.
Awesome. I was listening to BNR the other day, and I do hear that they've got news, you've got sports news, you've got market reports, there's even interviews, businessmen interviews that are conducted on there. Is that now very carefully slotted in to be part of the entertainment?
Yes, and it's very carefully edited down. I mean, you can't have a businessman waffling on. We've cut those interviews down to poignant, meaningful comments. And you talked about the news just now and sport. We only give the headline.
Listenership? What's our listenership on the BNR?
Thereby hangs a problem, which is where the advertising agencies and a lot of people are at dispute in the industry. It's almost, I don't want to say immeasurable, but it is almost. We know, for instance, many large firms have got it on and they broadcast it in their office. Now, if there are 20 people in that office, you can't account for that.
Who do you believe should be listening to business network radio?
Well, I think every office that wants to keep its staff a little happy, I mean, good relations, HR, should be broadcasting it through their buildings. I believe that small businesses that can't afford to set up their own radio network, I mean, you've got a lot of these large companies that have got their in-house radio stations, but there are smaller companies that can't afford to do this, could come and do a deal with us and take it on there. We can advertise for them as well. It opens up so many opportunities.
I remember you from radio back in the 70s, and you had a show called the Chuckler and Chat Show on Radio 5.
That was 80s, actually.
It was the 80s. Yeah. Gosh, well, the 80s.
Yeah, I'm not that old.
I think it was one of the biggest shows ever in South Africa, if I remember correctly.
It was recorded as one of the biggest shows because we were different in those days. We had fun. I think a lot of fun's gone out of radio, I must tell you now. I often think, would it work today? And part of me says yes, it would, and I'm trying to be objective now, not emotional, because radio has become so disturbing that people are talking about who's killing who's stolen what, who's done this, and what's wrong with that. The fun is gone. Whereas I believe that if I brought that fun back in again, yeah, I think people would be very happy to have a good laugh. There are light-hearted subjects we don't touch on, not even on talk radio. It's become so serious, so damning, so negative. And I think it's time we started putting the positive back in our lives. It's a great country.
But your start in radio wasn't in South Africa.
No, overseas.
It was
I
overseas.
was a pirate
at one time. I believe you were a pirate at one time.
I was on Radio Caroline, yeah. Radio Luxembourg, which broadcast, and a pirate and so on like that. Yeah, it was good fun in those days.
Yeah, for viewers that are listening and watching this and don't know what a pirate radio station was, it was a radio station broadcasting outside of the parameters of the Broadcasting Authority and then broadcasting offshore into the country.
The Boat That Rocks, there's a movie out with Bill Nye, and you watch that because it's very much like it was. And we used to go offshore, but there were terrible conditions, that North Sea.
Tony, you also, I believe, were involved with INCASA or in helping to write the Act for the Broadcasting Authority?
Well, it wasn't INCASA in those days, it was the IBA, Independent Broadcasting Authority.
They were the forerunners to INCASA?
Yeah. I was one of the 16 stakeholders that we sat down over a period of, I think it was about 11 months, and we wrote the Broadcasting Act, so which in those days I had a radio station called Solid Gold, and we broadcast for 2.5 years and were promptly refused a licence, despite having been good enough to write the Act. So I've always felt a little bit sore and annoyed about that one. But hopefully we have a full-blown radio station coming up in Cape Town very shortly.
Okay. Another thing I don't want to mention here, because Tony Sanderson, the man, a lot of people don't know that you were actually a very, very good, I think you were a professional soccer player.
Yes.
Played professional soccer?
Yes, won't talk about it. Look at this. Yeah, I had a little stint with West Ham and Wolves, and I was the coach of Orlando Pirates in South Africa for 3 years. Yeah, I still love my soccer. Great Liverpool fan.
Well, there you have it. Tony Sanderson, Director of BNR Radio, describing the future of radio and the online streaming radio and television opportunities that are opening up to us. To listen to the BNR radio station, you can go to www.bnradio.co.za.